Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar this morning. So I'm meant to be looking at the new Sophos firewall firmware and some of the new features that you're getting, how to perform the upgrade and make sure that it's seamless, and how to take advantage of some of the new features that you have with this new firmware. So for our agenda for this morning, we'll do a live upgrade of a firewall and also discuss about the failsafe mode. So there's an issue with some firewalls, especially firewalls that were migrated from cyber backups, devices that were migrated from cyber, and some of them go into failsafe mode after you have completed the upgrade to version 19. So can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, thanks. Then we'll also cover the new features, and then if there are any questions that you have in the course of the webinar, we'll also cover that as well. So at a glance, some of the new features that you have is you have improved SD-WAN performance. There are a lot of new things you are able to do from the SD-WAN side of things with respect to your firewall. So now you are able to set up maybe an SD-WAN profile. You can set up an SD-WAN profile for maybe VoIP or certain business applications that you use, and set up like a performance-based link selection scenario where maybe on one hand, if you are looking at not going beyond or below a certain performance level, the link should automatically switch to another one and then come back later when the conditions have improved. You also have improved VPN performance, and currently Sophos firewalls now supports, that have been upgraded to version 19, now supports native integration with AWS environments. So if you needed to do a site-to-site VPN connection from maybe your on-prem location to your AWS environment, it's now easy for you to it's very seamless for you to pull that off now. And then you have improved logs for VPN. So there are more information that you have in the logs currently relating to your VPN connections on your firewall. And then there's also the platform has also been improved, both the user interface, you are able to enforce more things, and then you also have this global navigation search in case you are unsure of where you are meant to find a particular configuration or feature. You can just make use of that to quickly search for it. So next, before we do the live upgrade, the reason we're doing it early or at the beginning of the webinar is so that we give some time for the upgrade to complete before we now log into the device again. Part of the reasons for the failsafe mode, the most common one that has been noticed by Sophos, is that devices that were migrated from cyber, devices that were migrated directly using cyber backups, are going into failsafe mode immediately after the upgrade has been completed. So on one hand, the major reason for that is actually due to an algorithm that the hashing algorithm that is used for the local certificate of the device. There's also an advisory that has been released for that by Sophos, and I would share that as well. Another thing that you have now is that some devices currently notify you if if that particular device is not meant to be upgraded yet, without you regenerating the certificate on the appliance certificate. So it's good, if you've not yet upgraded your firewall, it's good for you to check that your device is not one of them, or there's actually another way to also confirm in case your device doesn't show any of these warnings before you upgrade. But currently you should have an alert like this on your firewall if it is one of the devices that has that issue. So I'm going to open up the advisory and pick out something. So another way to confirm that you have the right algorithm for your appliance certificate is to enter this command in the advanced shell. So what you could do, you just need to confirm that the signature algorithm is not MD5 and it is something else. If peradventure you do that and you discover that it's MD5, you just need to regenerate the appliance certificates before you go on with the upgrade. So I'll log into the firewall in my lab to confirm that. So upon logging in, we've seen that the signature algorithm is SHA-256 and not MD5. So this firewall is good to go. We can perform the upgrade. So we'll just give it about a minute or two for the download to be completed. Then we'll apply the firmware. Okay, so I think we can continue. I just need to wait for the upgrade to be prepared. So the device is meant to restart anytime now, so I think we can continue. Can anybody see my slides?
Yes, you can see.
Okay, thanks. So part of the benefits that you're getting with this new, or some of the benefits that you may have already been getting from your setup and your firewalls, is that with each update, we are edging closer towards having a secure service edge access, and also provide secure access within your network or infrastructure, as the case may be. So you are able to utilize either ZTNA or your VPN connections to provide secure remote access for your users. You could also leverage the Sophos Reds to provide secure access for maybe your branches or users, if you prefer to use that as well. And for some of us who may have already started using the new Sophos firewalls, the Sophos XGS firewalls, you would have noticed that there's an improvement in the performance, because you now have a separate physical component handling some of the tasks. Another key benefit that you're getting out of this new firewalls and the firmware is improved SD-WAN performance. I've already mentioned that before. And one of the advantages sites or branches, as the case may be, you're also able to effectively monitor and optimize when you can, and possibly have failover situations where if maybe one of your ISP links goes down, the SD-WAN switches to another ISP, and helps you to a large extent improve the business continuity for your organization. Another thing that you can achieve with SD-WAN is that you're able to optimize your application performance. So for critical applications that your business uses, maybe have Zoom, Teams, or there are other core applications or SaaS applications like Salesforce that your business uses or your organization uses to perform its core tasks and duties, you could also guarantee that most of the time those applications should get more bandwidth or perform efficiently compared to other applications, or get preference over other applications. You could also, for internal applications that you might be hosting in your data center or even in your physical office, you could also guarantee a sort of session quality for those business applications, and ensure that at each point in time, people are able to perform the tasks that they need to with those applications. So for Sophos SD-WAN infrastructure, you could achieve that with your firewalls, or you could leverage the Sophos Reds, either the SD-Red 20 or the XD-Red 60, depending on your needs. And Another new thing that we got with this new firmware is you now have the ability to monitor the performance of your SD-WAN configuration. You now have the ability, that is the performance of your links. You now have the ability to improve the link management, and you have various routing options that you may not have had before. You now have the option for a failback and all of that. You could also load balance, or you could target specific applications or services. There's also support for Azure Virtual WAN. So in case you have an Azure environment and you have a virtual WAN in that environment, you could also leverage Sophos Extreme SD-WAN to make use of that. And because of the synchronized security feature with Sophos, where you are able to, your device is able to communicate with the endpoint protection that's on your end user devices, you are able to monitor, or you are able to profile new applications that might not have been previously supported in your next gen firewall. So if there are some new applications that users are installing on their system, some of the things that you'll be able to get out of it is that your firewall can now pick up those new applications because of the endpoint protection that exists on that system, on the end user's device. So in moving towards where Sophos XD-WAN is currently, we've gone from version 18 to bring up all these new features, and currently we now have some of the new features that I've already mentioned: the SLA profiling, your performance-based link selection. So you can also configure certain service levels for different applications and say, okay, this particular application, if the connection is below this, please, or pick the best performing link to service any request from this application. Like I mentioned previously, you now have like a specific physical component. You have like an extra CPU in your XGS appliances that handles part of the traffic separately. So on one hand, previously your firewall would have just, the CPU of the firewall would have just performed all those tasks and all of that, but now you're not able to separate tasks, and the Extreme CPU performs some of the tasks, especially with regards to your IPsec and VPN traffic, and the other CPU on the firewall is able to take care of your SD-WAN and your application traffic and all of that. So for most people who have upgraded to version 19 and who are also using the XGS appliances, part of what you notice is that there's an improved performance. And if you even check the spec sheets for some of the newer firewalls, for some of the XGS models, you have up to 5 times improved performance when you match it against their counterparts or the devices that they are replacing. So let me quickly check if the upgrade is done. Okay, I think it's done. Okay, so we're done. And I think we'll come back to this, but part of the new features you have is that you can already see the global search box. So you're able to just search from here and possibly pick which option serves you better instead of having to click on one item or click on another one in order to find it. So if I wanted to maybe configure, maybe back up the device, or if I wanted to back up the device or maybe change the firmware, and I was searching for firmware, I just know that okay, this is what serves me better, and I'll just go to that page directly. So there's more, it's easier for you to navigate around the firewall. But let me quickly finish with the slides so that we'll come back to that. Okay, so for your SD1, for the service levels I was talking about, you can see from here that you have different options. There's best quality, and then there's also an option for you to pick based on specific things, or you could also customize and say, okay, if the packet loss is more than 2%, or sorry, less than 2%, maybe you use that link and all of that. And there are also granular health check options for you to pick maybe specific probe targets that can serve as your health check option. So if you're unable to ping XYZ, then you know that okay, maybe that link is down. Then you could also configure how many seconds you should wait before the health status actually changes. And then another new thing that you have is that you can apart from being able to monitor the SD1 performance for your different WAN links, another new benefits that you have is that you could also have recommendation in case you're not sure of which, in case you're trying to configure like a custom SLA and you're not sure of which SLA option you're working with, you will be able to do that. There are some recommended values for you to work with. So another thing that you should be looking at for your organization should be central SD1 orchestration. So what this allows you to do is to essentially almost plug and play devices at branches or at different locations. So you're able to just automatically set up all the rules and tunnels to make everything work, and maybe you just send the firewall to that location and they plug it in according to how you've configured it, and it just works. So that's part of the options that you now have. And then there's been improvements to the interface for configuring your VPNs and the rest of that. And there's also an assistant. I'm sure those of us who have maybe upgraded to version 18.5 would have noticed that there's this Sophos assistant bar by your side. But now you also have like a separate wizard to guide you through configuring your remote access VPN for your SSL VPNs. And I think I mentioned this already before, that you now have like native support from the firewall to just configure your tunnel to AWS. So one of the other things that you'll be getting is that you now have the option to maybe disable intrusion prevention globally. So instead of previously, you'd have had to do that on each of the rows. But if there was any reason for you to just maybe turn it on, you can now turn it on globally, and it just applies to all the traffic that's going through your firewall. So you now have the option to be able to do that And another good thing about this new firmware is for repetitive logs, we also have there's also the capability for a firewall to suppress them or aggregate those logs. So instead of taking up excessive space on your device, you just know that for logs that are kind of repetitive, they get aggregated or combined. So in summary, before we go into the dashboard again, summary, what you have is the best performance and protection, the easiest management experience. I'm sure most of us are also aware that you could manage your firewalls from Sophos Central, which is a cloud platform. So instead of having to log into all these firewalls individually, especially if you have multiple firewalls, you could now do that from Sophos Central. Another advantage is in case you're out of the office and maybe your firewall doesn't necessarily have a public IP, which is also unsafe to leave on. It's actually unsafe for you to leave the public, to allow the public firewall, the public IP of your firewall to respond to requests. So as a safer option to doing that, you could just connect it to Sophos Central, and anywhere you are, as far as you have internet where you are and that device also has internet, you can connect and manage any configuration that you need to do or anything you need to do on the firewall. And the last one is you are able to be flexible with your networking. So now you have so many options to work with. In case you still want to stick to your normal MPLS, you can do that. If you're working with a GI tunnel, that's still fine. If you were doing VPN as well, that works perfectly. And if you wanted to do SD1, you also have the option to be able to do all of that. So let's quickly go back, or are there any questions before I go back to the dashboard? Are there any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, I'll quickly head back to the dashboard.
SD1 profile. I look at.
So let me just quickly confirm that the 2.1 links are working before I continue. Okay, both are active.
I think you have a question on the message.
So currently, you now have the, like I previously mentioned, you can create profiles for different options. So let's say I had a profile for normal user traffic. Maybe I had an application data center, for example, for people who maybe host their VoIP applications in the data center or on-prem. I could create an SD1 profile for the routing of that traffic. I could also create an SD1 profile for SIP traffic as well. So if I already know that everybody's SIP traffic, most of it should go to the data center first, I could set up the profile in a way that the traffic is routed to the data center. And your SD1 routing options is not limited to whether you have just your normal WAN links. You also have the option to some of the links that you can select, or the gateways that you can select for your profiles can also be your Can also be your VPN links or your MPLS links or any other link that you might have. So you also have that as an option. So I'm just going to create like a test profile that we'll use to see how it works. So I'll opt for best quality. Okay, I think let's still just go with the defaults. I'll save. So usually it takes a few minutes for it to turn green. So you now have the option to either select maybe your normal primary and backup gateway, where you still have the option to do your one link load balancing. And then the other option is to select that SD-WAN profile that you created. So I'll just bring it up. So the way it actually works is almost the same as your normal firewalls, where it's first match that gets picked. So I think none of these two would have matched my existing. None of these two will match the existing setup, and that's why my odd traffic is going through the first one. So as you can see now, the first option, you can actually see which gateway is being used. The first option, this JCP port 2 gateway, is what is currently serving my internet traffic. So another benefit that you have is that users can almost not notice when the link has been switched. So it takes about maybe a second or less for the link to switch, and then you could also configure, depending on what else you had actually configured, for the link to switch between one gateway and the other. So as a quick test, I'm going to see how long it takes for the link to switch between this gateway that I'm currently using and the second ISP. So it's back, and if I reload this page, you can see that it switched to the second ISP, and it was a very short transition, it wasn't that long. So that's part of the benefits that you could get with this new firmware. Then you can also check all of this other, you would have maybe different statistics being tracked for all of these ISPs. So you usually have maybe your latency, packet loss. So because the other link is down, the packet loss for this first ISP has kind of spiked a bit. Then another thing that you can currently do is that from the live sessions, you're actually able to drill down and see which particular gateway is being used. So previously, for the older traffic, I was using these ports So this port 2 is for my first ISP, and currently I'm using port 4. So that's part of the new functions or new features that you have with this new firmware. I don't know if there are any questions at this point, or if everything I've explained has been clear. Okay, so if there are no questions, I would like to thank everyone for joining us this morning.
Sorry, there's a question I dropped in the chat box.
Okay, let me check. Your question is, with the new SLA, how will it help in giving the best load balancing between two links? So one of the options that you currently have is that you'll be able to, like I mentioned earlier, you have like a performance-based link selection where the best link will most likely always be used for that traffic. And if you were maybe having problems with a particular application, if you're having problems with a particular application, you could also maybe route traffic for that specific application. If you have all the information and the ports and all of that, you could configure your policies in such a way that the traffic for that application is maybe routed through your best ISP or your stronger link. For your second question, I think there's another question again. Okay, yes, you would actually be able to monitor. I think that was part of what I showed already. You'll be able to monitor the performance of your different links. So you could actually check through the logs and see the performance of your links. I think for up to 30 days, you could collect that information and also generate reports on that. I don't know whether that answered your question, or if there are any other questions.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay. So are there any other questions? So if there are no other questions, I would like to thank everyone for okay, I think there's another question trying to find out the exact bandwidth you are getting from your ISP. So you can actually get the rates that you are hitting from your firewall. It might not be exact, but you can actually estimate from time to time maybe how much bandwidth you are utilizing. So you might not actually know what your ISP is giving you, but you just know that, okay, this is what you utilize at so and so time or at so and so point in the day. Okay, so there's another question asking if the recorded video will be shared. Yes, the recorded video will be shared after the webinar. Okay, for the person that was asking about the bandwidth usage, from the system graphs portion of your firewall, you can actually get how much, you can actually estimate the boundary that you've been hitting. So you usually have like a range of traffic, but it might not be exact. It just gives you how much you're actually. That's why I get details of maybe how much of your bandwidth you're actually utilizing, or the speed that you're hitting on that firewall, on the particular port or link. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. After the webinar, we will be sharing the recorded videos and the slides as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.